When I think of SpongeBob SquarePants and why it works so well, my mind doesn't go to SpongeBob. In fact, it goes to the other characters, like the random fish,
Not at all, boy!
Patrick Star,
Rectangles!
or most of all, the series main antagonist, Squidward Tentacles.
I have no soul.
Now, many might say that Plankton was the antagonist of the show, or even that there was no antagonist at all. But Squidward is very similar to some of the great antagonists in television or film history, such as the Joker or Syndrome from The Incredibles, because of his relationship to the protagonist. Squidward, like the Joker or Syndrome, pushes the protagonist's limits, attacking their weaknesses and challenging their goals with their own conflicting ones. So let's take a look at why Squidward isn't only the main antagonist in SpongeBob SquarePants, but also the most perfect antagonist in television history. The antagonistic force is made clear early on. Something that the very best antagonists have in common is their antagonistic force is made very clear or foreshadowed from the very start. For example, in The Incredibles, the villain Syndrome is introduced early on as a child, or the Joker from The Dark Knight, who is introduced in the very first scene of the film. Squidward is no different. In the very first minute of this first episode of the SpongeBob SquarePants pilot, Squidward's antagonistic force is introduced with masterful yet subtle execution. The intentional showcase of his house in between SpongeBob and Patrick's home foreshadows the antagonist, Squidward's goal of getting in the way of the protagonist, SpongeBob, and his final goal of Patrick Star. Keep this in the back of your mind because we'll get there. A great antagonist pushes the protagonist. Another thing that separates the good and the bad antagonists is their ability to push or challenge the ideology of the protagonist. SpongeBob and Squidward are ideological opposites. Squidward is jaded, pessimistic,
We're doomed!
but also realistic.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
No, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument.
Where SpongeBob is innocent,
Squidward smells good.
optimistic, yet naive. Squidward is constantly pushing SpongeBob's naive and childlike ideology. Take for example in Pizza Delivery, where Squidward pushes SpongeBob's beliefs to their limits by questioning SpongeBob's willingness to put the customer above everything else.
Will you let go of that stupid pizza already?
I can't, it's for the customer.
Who cares about the customer?
I do.
Well, I don't!
Oh, Squidward.
This elevates the story because SpongeBob's core ideology was pushed to its absolute limits. The antagonist must be complex. The reason why my mind goes to Squidward when I think of an exceptional antagonist is because Squidward is such a complex one. The reason why having a complex antagonist makes the story work so much better is outlined perfectly by Robert Mckee's book, Story, Style, Structure, Substance, and the Principles of Screenwriting. The more powerful and complex the forces of antagonist opposing the character, the more completely realized the character and story must become. And the complexities of Squidward's antagonism can fully be understood when looking at it through the lens of the positive versus the negative in the protagonist and the antagonist. And the SpongeBob episode Dying for Pie is the perfect example of Squidward representing the negative to SpongeBob. At first glance, this may seem as simple as this chart, where SpongeBob represents the positive, love, whereas Squidward represents the negative force of the chart, which is hate. However, Squidward's antagonistic force is not as simple as this, and Squidward's antagonistic force in this episode can be better represented by this chart, courtesy of the author Gilbert Bassey and his article, The Ultimate Guide to Creating Compelling Antagonism in Fiction. SpongeBob still represents love here, but Squidward's complex antagonistic force can be seen within all of the other boxes. For instance, Squidward shows a false negative indifference towards SpongeBob's gift near the beginning when he says,
I'll buy the little twerp a gumball.
After Squidward believes he has killed SpongeBob, he tricks even the audience that he cares for SpongeBob by saying he wants to spend the day with him, when in reality, he just wants a front row ticket to watch SpongeBob explode. So, this would be the double negative, or hate disguised as love. Finally, when Squidward finds out SpongeBob is going to live, Squidward finally returns to pure negative, which is hate for SpongeBob.
Now it's your turn.
That's not what what I meant, you barnacle head!
Now, we have established what makes an antagonist complex, but something that makes a great antagonist is how good they are at attacking the protagonist's greatest weaknesses. SpongeBob, like Mr. Incredible, is overly emotional and has an irrationally annoying love for people he's close to, which is actually one of both of their greatest character traits. However, the antagonists in their respective stories, Syndrome and Squidward, are skilled at attacking that. For example, in the same episode we looked at before, Dying for Pie, SpongeBob goes out of his way to make Squidward a homemade gift, which was a sweater made from his own eyelashes. Squidward swiftly and calculatedly rejects SpongeBob, leaving him an absolute wreck. Squidward uses one of SpongeBob's greatest strengths, which is his love for people, including Squidward, and he turns it into a weakness because Squidward doesn't fear death. In fact, he welcomes it in this scene.
Here, please hit me as hard as you can.
Squidward, I'm working in the kitchen. At night.
Don't hold back.
This affinity for death makes the sponge sad because he loves his friend so dearly and doesn't want to see him go. Squidward effectively turns SpongeBob's greatest strength into his greatest weakness in a matter of seconds. John Truby, in his book Anatomy of a Story, outlines a simple equation that shows the importance of showing a character's weakness in a story. W times A equals C, where W stands for weaknesses, both psychological and moral. A represents the struggle to accomplish the basic action in the middle of the story, and C stands for the changed person. Weakness times action equals change, or WAC for short, can be seen in Dying for Pie, but taken a step further. In Dying for Pie, SpongeBob's strength, which is his love for Squidward, is actually turned into the W in this equation, or his weakness, only because the antagonist Squidward turned it into one. And that weakness times the A, or the struggle to accomplish the basic action of trying to connect with Squidward, equals C, which is a changed sponge that can blow bubbles that explode and doesn't fear death himself. This is a prime example of this whack theory. Now, remember when we talked about Squidward's introduction to the series with his house foreshadowing how he will come in between SpongeBob and his ultimate goal of Patrick? Well, this represents Squidward's constant attempts throughout the series at getting between SpongeBob and his ultimate goal of having a romantic relationship with Patrick Star. For instance, in this scene, Squidward interrupts Patrick from getting brain from SpongeBob.
Oh yeah.
How are you doing that?
And if you need any more proof, here's a scene basically spelling out Squidward's horrible views on homosexuality.
I hate people.
Squidward's house being in between SpongeBob and Patrick's represents Squidward getting in between the protagonist's ultimate goal of being in a loving relationship. In the great stories, there needs to be a goal that reflects the philosophy and desire of the antagonist. And if the protagonist is only trying to defeat the antagonist because they are evil, then the story lacks depth. But SpongeBob and Squidward have conflicting goals and ideologies, which make it very fascinating to watch. This fascination comes from there being more on the line, just like in the episode Pizza Delivery, like I mentioned before. This dynamic is present in another great antagonist in one of television's greatest dramas, Breaking Bad. In that show, Holly, the antagonist, pushes Walter, the protagonist, to his limit by targeting Walt's greatest weakness, which is his pride. In this scene, Holly forces Walt to swallow his pride by soiling herself on purpose in order to challenge Walter's ideology. And it has come to my attention, thanks to a YouTube comment, that this scene was entirely improvised and unscripted, which makes it, and the performance of the actors, ever the more brilliant. So these two scenes from SpongeBob and Breaking Bad mirror one another. They both have their antagonists challenging their protagonist. In Batman, it's the soul of Gotham that's on the line. And in Breaking Bad, it's how far will a man go to maintain his pride. And in Barnyard, it is the well-being of the farm's citizens in a battle of chaos versus order in Otis versus Snotty Boy.
That's called boy tipping!
But in SpongeBob, it's whether or not SpongeBob and Patrick will end up happy together, or will Squidward's evil antagonistic force prevail. This natural conflict makes Squidward more real and less of a cutout, or a simple force in the protagonist's way. It humanizes Squidward because it highlights the flaws he has while trying to accomplish his even more ideologically flawed goal. The antagonist must do more than give the hero something to do. they need to not only be focused on their goal, but have a reason they want to accomplish it in the first place. An antagonist must have a reason to accomplish their goals. Even though the antagonist's goal is an evil one, like Squidward's, it's important for a story that the antagonist have a reason to achieve this goal because it adds weight to a character and creates more natural and organic conflict. For example, Syndrome's reason for trying to make everyone super was because he had a hatred for superheroes stemming from his relationship with Mr. Incredible. And Squidward's reason to complete his goal of trying to stop Spongebob and Patrick's relationship stems from a homophobic tendency that was picked up in the episode Artist Unknown, when this homosexual fish denied his artwork.
How about this one? I call it bold and brash.
More like belongs in my ass. Ah!
When we start to delve deeper into the character of Squidward Tentacles, the pure chilling brilliance of the writing is revealed. Because who else in history had his artwork denied and was extremely homophobic? Yes, I am referring to the infamous antagonist of the world, Adolf Hitler. It's impossible to unsee once noticed. The depression, the homophobia in Squidward, and failure as an artist exactly mirrors that of Adolf Hitler. The similarities between the two antagonists don't stop there. They both had big noses, they both killed themselves, and the episode The Red Mist, it's canon, but they tried to cover it up because they were unsure about letting the audience know that Squidward is literally Hitler. Squidward and Hitler both wanted to live in a gentrified society, and I know he wanted to leave, but I mean, if Hitler got what he wanted, he probably would have gotten sick of it as well. And look what happens when you scramble the letters of Squidward. Wait, did you catch that? Let's go frame by frame to get a closer look and analyze this scene from the episode Bubble Stand. As you can see, perfectly clear, Squidward morphs his body into the shape of a swastika. If this isn't an objective indication of the creator's subjective intentions, I don't know what is. This is why the creators of SpongeBob have moved to mostly torturing Squidward in the recent episodes, because they're trying to give some retribution. Squidward deserves the infinite torture, just like Hitler. Now, I get some criticism for not addressing the critics of my arguments enough on this channel, and I get it. So, many might argue that Squidward wasn't Hitler, because Squidward wasn't evil. However, I would like to prove that Squidward was the epitome of evil with one simple scene. Here, Squidward tries putting a lemon into his tea, and as we know from the series episode Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 5, every villain is lemons. And when Squidward tried to put the lemon into his drink, Squidward was so evil that the lemon tried attacking him, knowing that he needed to be stopped. Some people may say that Squidward was the best part of SpongeBob because they can relate or empathize with him. And empathizing with the character is important. John Truby, the author of The Anatomy of a Story, has this to say about empathizing with the character. To empathize with someone means to care about and understand him. That's why the trick to keeping the audience's interest in a character, even when the character is not likable or is taking immoral actions, is to show the audience the hero's motive. So in empathizing with the antagonist, we can see clearer the protagonist's motives. Squidward, like Hitler, manipulated people into empathizing with him, and in turn gained more power to challenge the protagonist, like Senator Palpatine from the Star Wars prequels. This is the genius of the writing team on SpongeBob, because Squidward manipulates even the audience to like him. So if he is your favorite character, you essentially like Hitler. Squidward being Hitler alongside his antagonistic force being apparent early, his ability to push the SpongeBob to his limits, turn the protagonist's greatest strength into a weakness, and Squidward getting in the way of SpongeBob's ultimate goals, is why Squidward is the perfect antagonist. And as always, thanks for watching. Whoa, hey guys, I want to thank you all for 2,000 subscribers. It really means a lot to me. So here's me picking the winner to the caption contest live. Thanks again. So he says, Skylar made veggie bacon again. I don't want a dog, Skylar. I am the dog. I probably should read them as if they're him, as they're Walter. No, it's fine. When Hank pretends to throw the ball and you figure out he has it behind his back. When you find out Walter Jr. has been simping to Pokemon and lost all hopes for him. That one's pretty bad. Someone gets barked at and you think of me. No, I am the one that barks. I like that one. That one's pretty decent. I'm a fan. Yes. Oh no, it's this one. Yes. The 4 breeds of Labrador retrievers: the chocolate lab, the yellow lab, the black lab, and the meth lab. This is a lot, right? I feel like this is like quite a lot of text for this. I mean, I can see how that looks on the image, but we'll see. Yeah. It's a lot of build-up. Jesse, these edibles ain't shit. That's actually not too bad. I like that one. That's top 3 for sure. What if the problem dog that Jesse was... What if I'm the problem dog that Jesse was talking about? The face I make when I have to walk... When I have to walk in wet socks.
I like that too.
Yeah. I like that one. I feel like that's just very accurate. I mean, when would I ever have to walk in wet socks?
Like after
Never.
7 or 8.
Oh, like a big ass puddle and you're like squashing around. Fair. Walter.
That's so weird for sure.
I think that one's yeah, this guy liked it. Yeah, I like Walter a lot.
Yeah.
When that weird kid in class screeches. That's also accurate. I don't even know if I need to look anymore. I think that one's probably good. I like Walter the most. I like Walter and this one a lot. It's in between these two. This one just came in very recently.
Yeah, like these
two.
3 are my top
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, I like these a lot.